I'm going to spend a little time talking about where we've been over the last year and where we're going over the next year. And it's been a very, very busy year. Someone asked me the other day how long I have now been at NetHope, and I said, oh gosh, it feels like I just started yesterday, but I realized that in January it will actually be 2 years. The good news is it still feels like, I'm the first one at the party, and I'm having a great time, and everything is lots of fun, which is the good news. The bad news is it's all going very quickly. And so it's good, I think, every now and then to take a moment and pause and say, where have we been over the last year? What have we done in the last year? And I just want to spend a few minutes talking about some things that worked and, quite frankly, some things that didn't. So let's take a look. When we started our fiscal year 15 last year, so that would have been July 1st of last year, we sat down with, or July 1st of 2014 and would have ended in June 30th of this year, we sat down with the board, the management team sat down with the board, and we said, these are our priorities for the year. And we had a very healthy debate about that. We had lots of good discussion. And we said, these are the things that if we do nothing else next year, these are the priorities in terms of the things that we want to accomplish. So that's where we started. Let's see what we did. First thing we did is we developed, approved, and operationalized the strategic plan. It is done. It is finished. The board has approved it. Hooray, we have a path forward for the next 5 years. And in that strategic plan, we outlined 5 pillars, 5 priorities for the organization over the next 5 years. The first is to grow our collective impact. NetHope was built on the idea of collaboration and of having impact, and we're going to continue to focus on that and double down on that. Enhance organizational capacity. That's not NetHope's organizational capacity. That's how do we help our member organizations anticipate and plan for the changes that are happening in the world of technology and how that will affect their organizations. Improve access to technology. Always been critical for NetHope, always been core, and keep focusing on that. Increase our outreach and advocacy. There's lots of conversations happening out there about technology and about the impact that technology will have in development. We have a viewpoint. We believe certain things will be true, and we should be vocal about saying those things. Our members have been incredibly innovative in the way that they are approaching technology, and we should shine a bright light on that to make sure that other organizations see it, that those organizations that are providing funding and are thinking about how to support our organizations can in fact understand where our member organizations are coming from. And last but not least, build a world-class organization. We have the privilege of the staff of representing some of the best organizations in the world, and we as NetHope, we are the NetHope organization, ought to live up to those standards. And so those are the 5 areas that we'll focus on through the strategic plan over the next couple of years. How have we done? Enhance and grow member engagement and programming. Well, we did a couple of interesting things this year. The first thing that we did was we launched the NetHope Leadership Institute. And this was really focused around this organizational capacity question. What does effective technology leadership look like in the light of all of the changes that are happening? We launched the CIO Challenge. Several of your colleagues are actually going through and have been going through over the last several months a pretty intensive reflection on what leadership really means and how do you grow those leadership skills. They've done that as a small cohort. They've done it with some outside folks. And my impression of it is that the conversations have been exceptionally rich and exceptionally rewarding. We've also seen the speaker series. We've had Toby Russell from Capital One. We've had Bob Davis from Microsoft. And most recently, we had Rebecca Jacoby from Cisco come in and talk about what their philosophy around leadership is and what it means for them and their organizations. We launched Women in the Web. In partnership with USAID, Intel, and a number of member organizations, we set out to train 600,000 women in Kenya and Nigeria over the next several years. And looking at digital literacy and starting to wade into this question of what does it mean to address questions of gender. If you were at Revi's session this morning, I'm sure you found it interesting. I was at a conference with Revi a couple of weeks ago, and where she pointed out, addressing gender issues doesn't mean having a pink phone. And then she realized that I was playing on my pink phone. It's not, but I learned it's not about having a pink phone, even if you happen to have one. We looked at the issues of emergency response. This has always been core to what we have done at NetHope, and it was certainly a very busy year in the area of emergency response. The West Africa crisis was probably the largest thing that we have ever done in terms of emergency response. Through that process, we distributed $4.25 million to over 30 member and non-member organizations to support all types of connectivity across West Africa. Right on the heels of that came Vanuatu, and then tragically, right after that came the Nepal earthquake. In Nepal, we distributed $300,000 worth of support to 22 organizations that were responding there. It's been a very busy year. Poor Geesley, I don't think, has actually seen his house except for maybe 2 or 3 days. And I should say, one of the questions I get asked a lot is, how do you do that? I mean, you're a small organization. How do you ramp up in times like that? I mean, when an earthquake hits, how is it that Geesley's one of the first guys to show up, and then how do you actually do that support? Well, I'll say 2 things. When a crisis hits, it's all hands on deck. So if a crisis hits and our members are responding, all of us essentially drop everything, and we go figure out what we can do to support our members as part of that response. The other thing that we do is we're very, very lucky in that our member organizations help us do that. And we all work together as a team in order to support. And so, especially in terms of West Africa, I want to say a very special thank you to Mercy Corps and to Concern, who both seconded staff to us and helped us find staff to run those responses over the course of those several months. As we all know, that was a very long emergency, and certainly there's still a tremendous amount of work to be done. But we did that largely through a lot of focus and a lot of help from our member organizations. And again, I want to give a special thanks to Geesley and to Frederick, who spent a lot of time in Liberia. Not surprisingly, with the Syrian refugee situation, we're responding there as well. And for those of you that have been involved in some of the situation calls over the last couple of weeks, you know that we're really focused on 4 things. The first is wiring the Azraq camp in Jordan. The second is providing connectivity to refugees that are on the move. The third is looking at crisis informatics. What information do we have and how can it help us make better decisions? And then over the longer term, we'll start to look at some of the educational opportunities that we need to create for children and for young adults that will most likely be displaced for some period of time. We'll talk more about the Syrian refugee crisis over the next couple of days, of course, but I just wanted to make sure that everyone knew that we were involved in that as well. So in those 4 areas, in those 3 areas, were really big foci area for us within member programming. I did want to put up the aggregation program there. We did start some work this year that really took off very quickly around broadband aggregation. We have gotten a lot of feedback on that. And like I said, when an emergency strikes, everything drops. So we've asked Kevin to spend his time focused on the situation in Azraq right now, which is where he is focused for the time being. We're taking a look at where we are with the aggregation program, and frankly, we'll come right back to that as soon as we're done with the summit. The second area that we looked at was expanding industry partnerships. Now, as Frank has mentioned over the course of the last couple of hours, we have been blessed over the years to have tremendous relationships with Cisco, with Microsoft, with Intel and Accenture. We've had some very good industry relationships over the years, and certainly the relationships that we've had with Cisco and Microsoft over the years have been absolutely critical to our success. But we needed to take that further. As NetHope continues to grow and as the areas in which we work continues to grow, we want to find new partners that are doing innovative things. So what have we done? Well, I'm proud that at this summit, we have 12 new supporters that have never attended a NetHope summit before. Companies that have come to us either through other partners or through past organizations that they worked with, and so we're welcoming a whole new group of folks into the NetHope family this week. This week, indeed, we have a number of new large corporate sponsors that stepped in. Largely came to us through the Ebola crisis. But have now become really meaningful partners to us. And certainly you heard from Neil earlier today, our relationship with Tableau has been a very strong one. And as we continue to work in this area of crisis informatics and looking at data, Tableau and Esri and Microsoft with their BI tools have certainly become a real area of focus for us in terms of how do we build those relationships. And I can't not mention that through our work with USAID and GBI, And this year alone, our corporate partners brought $13 million to the table to enhance the work that NetHope and USAID and our member organizations were doing this year. So all of those things taken together really points to a very strong relationship between the nonprofit community and the private sector. Now, we also wanted to spend some time in strengthening our organizational capacity. And I could spend all day telling you all the details of what we did, and I'm sure you'd really love to hear all of the ins and outs of our HR system and how we now do new employee orientation and all of these types of things. But let me simply say that a lot of things got really tidied up this year. We brought in Laura McMillan, who I just saw right there, who has really helped us pull a lot of this stuff together based on her past experience. The NetHope staff has grown. But at the same point in time, we actually came $250,000 under our budgeted personnel expenses this year, even as we've grown because of the optimization that we had in the budget over the course of the year. We've invested in our systems, not quite to the point that David Goodman, where it makes David Goodman happy, but we are actually beginning to do some serious work around systems and how we leverage technology more effectively to reach you and how we leverage technology more effectively to reach one another. We have certainly invested in our communications and how do we communicate more effectively and predictably and clearly with our membership. That will continue to be an area of focus in coming years. And the summit. We have absolutely positively outgrown any space that we've ever been in the past. And so we were really challenged. We have been really lucky over the last 15 summits to have partners that helped us find space. I mean, Cisco last year opened up their campus to us. Microsoft has opened up their campus to us. It turns out we would not fit in those spaces anymore. And so we really had to think about how are we going to do the summit this year and still have the close connection that we want to have at the summit and that experience. The other thing I should say about personnel is we made a couple of key investments in order to support our membership. Alex Mitchell joined about a year ago around operations to make sure that things were flowing correctly between members and the NetHope organization, and especially between the board and the management team so that those lines of communication were always open. Our other Alex, since we only have a couple of names that we're allowed to choose from, our other Alex Alpert, joined our organization a couple of months ago to focus on membership and how do we make sure that our membership is being taken care of appropriately and that we are serving our membership in the way that we should be. It was great to bring Kevin on full-time and bring David on. It's just been a very good year in terms of ramping up our staff, and I feel really good about where our staff is in order to support that the work of the organization has in front of it. We wanted to grow our thought leadership. If NetHope members have a perspective, if we have beliefs about technology, if we have beliefs about the impact that we can have, how do we bring that to the fore? And so you saw over the course of the year, the organizational guide to ICT for D that came out last year's summit, the work that we did around cashless to electronic payments, mobile money, around humanitarian cash transfers, the SDG ICT playbook, all of these things came through the NetHope staff in partnership with the membership to provide members with resources that they needed in order to navigate this world of technology and the world of humanitarian and conservation work. All of that stuff, of course, is up on the Solution Center, and if you haven't had a chance to take a look at that, I would encourage you to do so. And I want to say thank you to all of the members and all of our corporate sponsors that helped us make these things, that helped make these things possible. It really does help to have the viewpoints of many, many different folks in making these rich resources. So let's take a look back at where we were. You'll notice that one of them didn't get addressed. Build new lines of business. I will be completely honest, we ran out of time. We just never got around to it. And we're looking at it. One of the things I think that's really critical for us to do is to start to think about how do we actually diversify the financial base of NetHope, and it's one of the things that we'll continue to look at, and certainly there's some interesting models that are emerging out there. But frankly, given all of the work that happened this year with all three emergency responses, at some point in time we had to prioritize where you spend those hours of your day, and that's the one that fell off the list. We were very transparent with the board about that this year when we got to the end of the year, and we certainly are continuing to work on it for next year, but we just didn't frankly get very far in it this year. So where will we go next year? Well, you can see a lot of these things continue. We will operationalize the strategic plan. We've got it passed, it's in place. How are we going to build the organization now around those pillars in the work that we're doing? And you'll see if you read any of the reports that come out from an organizational perspective, we've organized our work around that. We've restated the budget and reorganized the budget this year around the strategic plan so that we can actually come back to the membership year after year and say, against the 5 priorities that we set out in the strategic plan, here's how our spending and our revenue lined up against that. Here's the impact that we had in each one of those places. We will continue to strengthen the organization. We will continue to invest in the things that we need to do in order to serve the membership well. We'll continue to make smart investments. We're a small organization. We're a lean organization. We're a nimble organization. We're a highly dispersed organization. But it works really well for us. And so there's some things that we will continue to invest in and some that, frankly, because of the way that we're structured, we simply don't need to do. And so you'll see us continue to work through that. We'll also continue to work on our industry partnerships and diversifying the financial base for the organization. But there's a couple of things that have already started that I wanted to pull out of some particular interest. One is to refine and grow the way that we work with members around programming. And one of the questions that's come up through the years is, how does NetHope decide what to do and what not to do? And there's lots of different ways that happens. Some of those ideas come from our members, some come from our partners, some come from a bright idea because we were listening to a really interesting story on National Public Radio. They come from lots and lots of different places. But one of the things that we wanted to do is to be really transparent about that and actually put a process in place to say when we come up with ideas, how are we going to evaluate which ones are great and which ones are ones that we should maybe set aside or ones that we should run away from. And so we put together, in partnership with the program committee on the board, a really simple 4-step process where we walk through from somebody has an idea, let's go out and post that and see what kind of feedback we get. If 5 people raise their hand and say, that's a great idea, let's go do that, well, maybe then there's something there. If nobody raises their hand, but everybody says, yeah, that's a really good idea and we'd like to see where it goes, maybe we should still keep doing it. If somebody raises their hand and says, listen, we tried that 3 times and it doesn't work, then we should run away from it. But at least let's have the conversation. Let's not surprise ourselves with the work that we're doing. Let's surface that work and see how we can build consensus from the very beginning around around the areas where we're going to focus on. And then collectively and transparently, let's put together those concept notes and see what we can get funded and what we will do together. Now you'll see that happen in a couple of different ways. We're driving a couple of different things. Really the focus is about getting more member engagement and deeper member collaboration. If 7 of you raise your hand and say, wow, I really care about that issue, maybe there's one project for 7 members. Maybe it's not 7 different organizations trying to tackle the same problem. So let's figure out what that might look like. Let's go figure out how the work that we do really does reflect all of the input of our collective members. Now, we started this process, and like I said, we're a nimble organization and we work simply. And over the course of the next couple of weeks, you will see pop up on Box, and you'll be invited to Box to come in and look at the ideas that are starting to pop up. You'll be invited to comment on them, and some of them will make it to fruition, and some of them won't. Really simple process. Might change over time. David tells me that there's a cleaner way to do this, but we'll get there sooner rather than later. But I just wanted to surface the idea that this whole idea of getting lots of folks involved as these ideas come through, so that the output is as rich as it can be, is something that we're going to be really transparent about and really process-oriented about. And I want to say thank you to the program committee and to the NetHope staff that worked on pulling this together so that it both accomplishes our means but isn't too heavy a process. The other thing I want to point out is that we will continue to focus on sector advocacy and outreach. There's a lot to be said about the use of technology in our sector and how we might think about that. We continue, as you've seen here today, to have a lot of interest in membership in NetHope. That's great. That's fantastic. So it makes for a richer conversation. How do we evaluate that? How do we make sure that our membership, as you've seen the board address, how do we make sure that our membership criteria reflect the organizations and the big family that we want to bring in and really get folks in who share our values from a NetHope perspective and want to collaborate with us. And we'll continue down that path. You will see us reach out to more folks inside our member organizations and diversify the folks that we talk to, because as technology becomes more and more ubiquitous, it's not just the IT teams that are starting to think about technology. Lots of folks do. Everybody's seen the predictions that if it's not this year, it's next year, that CMOs will have a larger technology budget than many IT departments. And so if that's true, then should we be having that conversation? Not around best practices in marketing, but what do those technologies look like? And how does infrastructure technology play well with marketing technology? Maybe that's something we should open up a conversation around. Let's see what that looks like, and let's see whether folks are open to that conversation. And then finally, we continue to get really strong interest from a wide variety of partners. So how do we make sure that we bring those partners in and that they are contributing to and benefiting from the partnerships that we have inside NetHope from a membership perspective, but also with the broader community. And a big part of this will be advocacy. And so one of the other things that we wanted to do is we updated the website. How many folks have been to the new NetHope website in the last week? Oh, thank goodness. Okay. I was so tired of that green. I was really done with the old NetHope green. But we've launched a new website, and we really wanted it to reflect a couple of different things. One, we certainly wanted it to reflect more of what our strategic plan has laid out for us. We wanted it to be bold. We wanted it to be aspirational. We wanted it to focus on the good impact that technology could have. And you'll see that over and over again in the words that we've chosen to use and the imagery that we've chosen to use on the website. The other thing that we wanted to do is that we wanted the idea of the website in its very design to be collaborative and reflect the close relationship that NetHope members have to one another. So if you haven't seen it yet, you should go up and click on the Our Team. It used to be NetHope staff and the board. Now it's the board, primary reps, the NetHope staff, and all of the folks that are part of the NetHope community. If you don't see your picture up there, and that's a lot of you, you need to do two things. You need to send us your bio, and you need to send us your picture to hello@nethope.org. It's real simple. If not, where's Alex? Alex will chase you down with the camera this week and take your picture. If you've already sent it to us, but it's not up there yet, don't worry, it's coming. But we really wanted the whole NetHope community to be reflected on the website and to have our members really shine through. And I want to say a very special thank you to the organizations that are listed there: Mercy Corps, NRC, SOS, Concern, TNC, WCS, and Microsoft. None of the pictures on the website, all of the pictures on the website from those organizations. We wanted all of the pictures on the website to reflect the work that our members are actually doing in the field, to tell real, authentic stories about the impact that technology can have on these issues. And if you've got great imagery in your organizations that you want to see surfaced, let us know, because we really want to highlight those stories and talk about the collective impact that this organization brings to bear. With that, I'm going to stop. We have not done everything right in the last year. We haven't. We've made some mistakes. The good news is that you guys are really, really good at telling us when we've made mistakes. And it helps us. I welcome that feedback because it helps us course correct for the next year. There's some things that we've done great this year, quite frankly. There's some days that I've woken up and I've said, the team just hit it out of the park. That was awesome. There's some days that I've thought, well, we got to go back and fix that one. Or, hey, next time we should do that a little bit differently. But I will say that if there's one thing I've learned over this past year, is that the impact that we can have is pretty tremendous when we're all moving in the same direction. So I welcome the feedback, positive or negative. I'd love to hear what did we miss in this? Are there things as we look at fiscal year 16, as we look at the next year between now and the next summit, wherever it is, and if anybody has suggestions, let us know. What are the things that we should be prioritizing? Where do you want us to focus? NetHope is a membership organization, and while we're all super passionate about the work that we do, at the end of the day, it's our job to reflect what you want. Now, as my mom used to say, if you don't express an opinion, I can make it up, and you get to live with it, or you can tell me, and you can be part of that conversation and engaged. And so part of the summit, it's a wonderful opportunity to surface that work. Vincent and the board have done some amazing work at trying to bring a lot of process to the board process so everyone knows what's going on, and we're trying to do the same thing from a management perspective and from a staff perspective. And with that, I simply want to say thank you from a personal level. This has been great. I have absolutely loved this job. I have absolutely loved this role. And I am looking forward to what the next year and the next year and the next year bring. It has been one of the most challenging and one of the most interesting and one of the most inspiring things that I've ever done. Not because we necessarily do some interesting stuff, that we do, but because I get to work with all of you who show up every day to do the hard work that most folks won't do. So thank you for the privilege of being able to work for NetHope. Thank you all for coming this week. And with that, there are no more barriers to the reception. Thank you. Have a good night, and we will see you tomorrow.